So, you guys want to become cybersecurity engineers? Well, I'm going to tell you a bunch of reasons why not to be a cybersecurity engineer. Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Nathan, and this channel is dedicated to anything cybersecurity or IT related. I've been in the cybersecurity field for about 7 years now with a lot of experience, and I just wanted to create this channel to share my knowledge with you guys, and hopefully you guys will gain a lot of good perspectives throughout this video. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing why you would not want to be a cybersecurity engineer is because there is so much stress and paranoia, and I can't even tell you where to begin with this one. But basically what it boils down to is that you have to make sure that you are on top of your A game, because if there were any sort of issue that were to happen, it is basically going to be on your fault. So I'll give you an example. So we have to, for part of my job, I have to review cybersecurity scan results. So I'll get a bunch of different type of software that's coming into our environment from the developers, and a lot of the times what they like to do is not fix their software, and they'll just go ahead and submit security findings with a bunch of critical and high findings. Well, I'm gonna have to go in there and basically analyze every single issue that is out there, and if I by chance miss one, which is pretty likely because there's a lot of scan results that I'm looking through, if I miss one thing, then that's pretty much my head basically that's on the chopping board. Because when you go through a whole environment, you basically have to go ahead and get it accredited. And there's a security control assessor that basically assesses the system to make sure it's falling in compliance throughout the whole process. And when you are finished with the accreditation, you'll basically go into a continuous monitoring phase, which the security control assessor can go in your environment at any time and make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to. If you're not, and let's say you miss one thing, depending on how the security control assessor is or how they feel that day, then it is really bad for you. The other thing too is that you basically just have to keep up to date, with a lot of the security findings, or if there are any incidents that happen, that's a lot of stress. And if you're not really familiar with the incident response process or how to necessarily do any of the steps, you could miss a step, and that could be a big vital step that you're missing, and that could be on you. So there's just a lot of different examples, but that's basically the first thing that comes to my mind. The second thing is that you're basically the unsung hero. So realistically, anything within the IT realm is basically a thankless job, kind of like system admins, network admins. People will only talk to you if there's an issue going on and they want you to fix it. So it's pretty similar to the cybersecurity field as well. A lot of corporate companies, they realize that cybersecurity is important. However, they really don't want to pay the money to do that. So, and they think of security as like a nuisance. So typically, majority of people, they'll kind of think of the cybersecurity professionals as nuisances, and they just don't want them to be around basically. So there's very few times where you get any sort of gratitude for doing your job or anything like that. So if you're that type of person that likes gratitude all the time and recognition, then cybersecurity might not be the road for you. The other thing is having very high expectations. So when I was starting out at my junior role, I pretty much didn't know what I was doing. I had some basic IT knowledge and experience with working with different operating systems and stuff like that, but there was a lot of stuff that I didn't know because I didn't have that much experience dealing with it in a production environment. So even when you're at the junior level, you'll go into meetings and people, have asked me questions when I was at that stage, and I'm like, I have no idea. And then they're thinking in their heads, well, it's like, you're the cybersecurity professional. You're the one who is basically drilling down these requirements to us. Shouldn't you know? And, sometimes I had a few instances where people, gave that to me, and it was just very hard because I wanted to do a really good job and have an answer for everything. But I ended up learning, that really isn't the case. You're not going to know everything, but, when you're in the cybersecurity role, the expectations are very high, for your knowledge and stuff like that. And people may not say that out loud, but that is definitely their perception. And I was fortunate enough to have a few people, kind of just vocalize that. But that's just kind of one thing right there. So the other point is basically you're going to be a part of every single meeting from the beginning to end of any sort of system requirements, software requirements, cybersecurity meetings, stakeholder meetings. So there are definitely going to be a lot of useless meetings that you are going to be going to, and majority of the time, none of them are productive. Now, that might be the case with every other profession out there as well, but with cybersecurity, it's definitely tough because you have to be the forefront and get your security measures right at the very beginning for the whole system. So you're going to be a part of a lot of meetings as a cybersecurity professional, and majority of the time, you know, they're honestly going to be kind of useless and there's not that much feedback that you can give. But when you are in the meetings and there's a cybersecurity question or concern, you have to be there basically for the meetings. So if you're like me and you absolutely hate meetings, right? Then, you know, that's kind of something to look out for as well. I've just grown over time to, you know, just deal with it basically, but because I like more of the technical aspect and working on that. I don't like meetings that, you know, sit there and interrupt you from your work. So that's just, you know, something to note if you're thinking about getting into this field. And then if you're kind of like the type of person that likes to learn things, but, you know, not constantly learn, you want to have like a few years to learn something, that's definitely not going to be the case for this field, because ever since I started this field 7 years ago, I have literally constantly been learning every single day. I learn something new every single day, and it's just one of those career fields that you just can't, you know, go a year or two without, you know, kind of being okay and going through the ropes, because something is always going to change. So I'll kind of give you an example on that too. Basically, when I started, I was on the on-prem type stuff, so there was no cloud technologies or anything like that. Additionally, on top of that, like outside of learning the operating systems that I had known, I had to go ahead and learn a lot of security tools that I was not familiar with. So there was about like 6 or 7 security tools that I've had to learn like while being a cybersecurity professional, but that list is definitely not exhaustive at all. So when I first started, that's kind of what I had to do. I had to like learn everything. And then these past 2 years, I've been basically working in the cloud environment. So technology is always changing, and everyone wants to have availability and redundancy and just be able to spin up an environment super quickly. So I had to go ahead and learn the cloud environment. And then on top of that, I had to learn how like containerizations, Docker, and Kubernetes and stuff like that worked as well. So there's like definitely a lot of moving pieces, and technology is changing so quickly. So, you know, that's just kind of something to keep an eye out if, you know, you don't really like to learn stuff like every single day. And that's kind of where I'm at. I've just gotten used to it because it's part of my job. The other part is that it's super hard to stay updated on what's going out there on the world. I've had to basically subscribe to a bunch of newsletters, and in doing that, I get updates on what's going on in the world in terms of cybersecurity events. But there are just way too many malicious actors, way too many vulnerabilities that are coming out. There's a bunch of zero-day exploits that you don't know about. And basically what zero-day exploits are, if you're not familiar, is basically a vulnerability that hasn't been exposed out to the internet, that where people know that vulnerability. So anyone that figures out that attack, they can just go ahead and attack the system, and it could even be months and years before anyone recognizes it. So like the instance with the Log4j that recently happened, that was kind of one. Red Hat knew that there was like some sort of vulnerability going on, but that ended up going out into the wild, and that ended up being a big issue that, you know, I had to help my program, you know, fix. So it's really hard to stay up to date and active on that, because there are going to be a lot of people asking you, you know, a majority of questions where it's like, okay, hey, did you know about this, this, and this? And we're like, no. It's like, you know, we're trying to do our job at the same time, but then keep up to date with everything. So that's kind of super hard to manage and stuff like that if you're not staying on top of kind of the newsletters that you subscribe to. The other thing too is that even though at times like I've had to learn a bunch of cybersecurity tools, some of the work can be extremely repetitive. So if you don't like repetitiveness and you like to have things, different every single day, then, this might not be the job for you. It depends on what, position that you are in realistically. So if you're like a cybersecurity analyst, you're an information system security officer, or you're an information system security engineer, those are some of the different roles that I played, but realistically, all those roles kind of get repetitive at some points. Penetration testing, that can differ depending on what type of environments you're going into, or supporting, the different projects. Like those can vary because all those systems are so new and different. Some of the procedures might be, or some of the procedures might be the same, but, you'd have to adjust those depending on, what environment, what systems they have on there. And then the other thing is that the past couple of weeks for me, I've had to basically babysit people all the time, and it just like blows my mind. So I'll give you an example. Basically, for the software developers, now I'm not bashing software developers whatsoever, but this is just kind of some of the things that you'll have to deal with and, just get used to it basically. So I've had a bunch of software developers. They will send me their software that they're trying to get into the system. I've said to them multiple times as like, look guys, we have a process. We put it on our Confluence page. Go read the Confluence page and you'll understand what the process is going. If you have like onesie twosie type questions, then that's fine. We'll be able to answer them. But that's definitely not the case. They, don't read anything, and they just want to submit the documentation to us and have us figure it out. So there was a lot of times where it's like they're submitting documentation that's non-human readable. I have to keep telling them, hey, like, fix your stuff, make it readable so we can see. There was other times where, the software developers, they would run scans and then they would try to play me basically, thinking that I didn't know anything. So they gave me a scan result that had 0 critical and 0 high vulnerabilities. And those are pretty one-off things. It can happen here and there with some software, but realistically, like, there's always like at least 1 or 2 critical or high vulnerabilities. So I was like, hey guys, like, you need to go ahead and fix this, make it human readable. You have to detail everything, why this is an issue, and if it's not fixable, you need to give an explanation of what you're going to do to fix it, or, whatever, right? And I had to go back and forth between these guys, like, every single time, and I'm like, ugh, you guys should, know what you're doing by now, right? I mean, even though you're software developers and you're kind of just, like, coding here and there, the managers that come to us, or some of the leads, they don't know what's going on. And I'm like, you guys have been in this field for how long now? And all of the development work that you're doing by now usually has security best practices in mind, especially with some of the courses, that people take, right? So that's just kind of like one of those things, right? So you just have to kind of do a lot of babysitting. Now, I'm not, sitting here bashing the software guys at all. Just wanted to clarify that. It's just kind of one of those things that you'll have to do if, you want to be a cyber, security engineer and stuff like that. But yeah, guys, so I've gone over a lot of topics, and I hope you guys find insight in this, because I really wanted to make a video where it encompasses basically if, someone wants to be a cybersecurity engineer, but I wanted to let you guys know through my experience, basically what I've been experiencing and stuff like that. And I'm going to be making, more videos, try to do it like once a week. So if you guys don't mind, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.